This is a story of a young boy who was able to deliver his people from the king's greed and wickedness by using the ancient powers and wisdom of the mystical talking tree. It is a story of how a simple act of kindness can create a ripple effect and bring about unity. In the little village of Umwede, there lived a young boy named Obinna. Life in the village was difficult, not because of the land or the animals, but because of their king. King Nonso ruled the village with greed and a heavy hand, demanding high taxes and taking more than his share of food from the people. Under his rule, the villagers struggled. They had barely enough to eat, and each day was harder than the last. The king's guards went around the village, taking more than 50% of what the villagers had, including their food and livestock. Anyone who dared to challenge the king got thrown into prison, and their homes were taken from them. As a result of this, the people were scared and instead lived in abject poverty. But Obina was different. Though he was poor as any other, he had a kind heart. He always helped where he could, even if it meant giving away his last loaf of bread. One day, after a long day's work gathering firewood, Obina came across an elderly woman sitting on the side of the road, looking hungry and weak. Her hand trembled as she clutched her empty basket, and her face shadowed with exhaustion. Obina's heart went out to her. Though he had only one piece of bread left in his bag, he handed it to her without a second thought. "Oh, thank you, young boy," the woman said, her voice warm but tired. "You have given me more than just bread. You have given me kindness," she said. Obina smiled and turned to leave, but the woman reached out to him. "Wait," she said. "You have helped me, and I would like to help you too." Obina shook his head. "I didn't do it for a reward," he replied humbly. The old woman smiled mysteriously. "Perhaps not, but there is something special I want to show you. Tonight is a full moon, and on nights like this, there is a tree deep in the forest that speaks to those who care to listen. It holds ancient secrets, wisdom beyond anything you could imagine, and sometimes it even grants wishes." Obina's eyes grew wide. A talking tree? Secrets? Wisdom? And wishes? He could barely believe his ears, but the woman looked at him with such conviction that he had to go seek out the tree. "If you go deep into the forest and find the tree under the light of the full moon," she said, "you may discover something wonderful." And with that, she gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder and disappeared down the path. Obina pondered on what the old woman had told him. He wasn't sure what to expect, but in his heart, he believed the woman was telling the truth. His curiosity was ignited. That evening, as the sun set and the moon rose, Obina made his way into the forest. The night was silent, with only the rustle of leaves under his feet and the glow of the full moon lighting his way. His heart pounded with excitement and fear as he walked deeper and deeper, following the moonlight filtering through the branches. Finally, he reached a gigantic tree, its trunk thick and twisted, its branches stretching high into the sky. The bark seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, and as he drew closer, he knew this was the tree the old woman spoke about because it stood out from the rest of the trees. Suddenly, he heard a low, gentle voice as the tree started to glow. "Welcome, Obinna," the tree said softly, its voice like a whisper in the wind. Obinna gasped. You, you know my name?" The tree chuckled. "I have known many things for many years. I am the keeper of ancient wisdom, and I speak only on nights like this. Tell me, young one, what brings you here?" Obina took a deep breath and with courage welling up in him, not knowing where the courage came from, he poured out his heart to the tree. He told the talking tree about King Nonso, the wicked king, the suffering villagers, and his dream of a better life for everyone. The tree listened, waving its branches slowly as a sign of nodding. "Your heart is pure and your intentions are noble," the tree said. "I will grant you a gift, but remember, power used for good will bring blessings, while power used for greed will only bring trouble." Obina nodded solemnly, vowing to use whatever gift he received to help his people. The tree's branches glowed, and suddenly a single branch with 7 golden leaves fell close to him. Obina looked at the branch, amazed at how beautiful the golden leaves were. The magical tree then said, "These leaves will bring you what you need, but use them wisely." Obina bent and picked up the branch with the golden leaves. He thanked the tree and hurried back to the village, clutching the branch close to his chest. When Obina got home, he placed the branch on top of the lid of an empty woven basket and went to bed. The next morning, he woke up to find the basket full of gold in the shape of leaves. He was shocked but happy. He silently thanked the tree in his heart. The next morning, after the miracle, the same thing happened. He had placed the branch on top of another empty basket and woke up to a full basket of gold. Every night before he went to bed, Obina would leave the branch from the mystical tree on the top of an empty basket and wake up to more gold. Obina used his newfound wealth to help his fellow villagers, secretly paying off their debts, buying them food, and sharing whatever he could. Soon, word spread of the mysterious young boy who seemed to have endless generosity and had risen from rags to riches. The people were grateful, but the king's guards were curious as to how a poor boy could suddenly become very wealthy. They wondered where all his wealth was coming from and reported back to King Nonso. The greedy king was furious. "How dare anyone share wealth without my permission?" he roared. "Bring me that boy at once." The king's guard stormed Obina's home, demanding he explain where his riches came from. But Obinna refused to tell them, fearing that the king would misuse the magic of the talking tree. The king was very angry and ordered Obinna to be thrown into the prison, hoping to break his spirit. Before Obinna was taken by the king's guards, he took the magical branch and hid it in a place where no one could find it. The guards took all the gold they could find. Days turned into weeks, and the villagers grew angry. They knew Obinna had used his wealth only to help them, and they couldn't understand why the king would imprison someone so kind. Secretly, they began to meet, discussing how they could free Obinna and end the king's cruel rule once and for all. Meanwhile, as Obinna sat in his cell, he beckoned to the tree, asking for guidance. On the next full moon, the old woman appeared before him in the shadows of the cell. "Remember, Obinna," she whispered, "the tree's gifts are meant to bring blessings. The people believe in you. Trust them, and they will help you find freedom." After saying this, she disappeared. It was at that point that Obinna realized that the old woman was connected to the tree somehow. However, he couldn't explain how. Her words filled him with hope, and the next morning, Obinna called out to the people who had gathered outside the prison walls. They brought torches, raising their voices in solidarity. "Free Obinna! Free Obinna!" they shouted. "Dethrone the king!" The king's guards tried to hold back the crowd, but the villagers were united in purpose and overpowered the guards. One by one, they dismantled the prison walls, freeing Obinna. With Obinna by their side, they marched to the king's palace, where King Nonso stood, trembling with fear. He knew he could no longer control the people because they were no longer afraid of him. Seeing their unity, the king tried to bargain. I I can share my wealth with you. I will change. I promise," he pleaded. But the villagers had already made up their minds. They dethroned him, sending him away from the village. And in his place, they crowned Obinna as their new leader. King Obinna ruled his people with kindness and fairness. He continued to help his people, always returning to the talking tree on full moons for guidance and wisdom. The village flourished under his rule, becoming a place of peace and prosperity. The talking tree remained his quiet friend and advisor, reminding him of the power of generosity and the dangers of greed. And so, Obinna's tale became a legend, a story of courage, kindness, and the incredible strength of unity. In the end, the story of King Obinna and the talking tree teaches us that true power lies in kindness and that wealth and wisdom should be used to lift others rather than pull them down. Question: if you found a tree that could grant you wishes, what would you ask for? Would you keep it a secret or share it with others? How do you think the old woman is connected to the tree? Let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for listening.